Let's go. We will call the meeting back to order. We'll take place at, pick up where we left off, and we'll begin public hearings number one. Public hearing number one, Z2011-010. Hold a public hearing to consider approval of an ordinance for a request by Mark Lowen of the Linity Group LLC for approval of a zoning change from general retail district to planned development district, specifically to allow for a congregate care of elderly housing facility on a 4.279 acre tract known as Tract 16-5, Abstract 145, J.D. McFarland Survey, situated along the southeast side of Yellow Jacket Lane, east of Kyle Drive, and take any action necessary. Robert, will this be you?
Yes, sir, Mayor. The Linity Group, they have submitted their application for a rezoning request, and as you said, on this 4.3 acre tract, which is located over on Yellow Jacket Lane, kind of across the street from the Waterstone, and backs up against what is the Rockwall Ford, and then you can see the apartments directly to the west of them, southwest of them. Part of the reason they've done this, and I think some of you have seen, and we'll see tonight the presentation from the applicant, this concept of congregate care facility, it's a concept that we have not really had in our definitions or how we define this particular type of business. It's very similar to assisted living in a sense, except it does not require licensing within the state of Texas. And the reason it doesn't require licensing is that they don't provide what is known as personal care. I'm going to go through that. It's a little bit about what that means. But essentially, it's when you're in an assisted living area and it's licensed, then you provide some sort of assistance to folks, whether it be a medication or their daily health habits of bathing, whatever you may be provided. The state defines that, and you cannot use the word assisted living unless you provide personal care to those folks. Now, as the applicant will tell you, they don't provide it, but they don't disallow it, and you can have, if you stay at this facility, you can have it contracted, and folks can come in, and if you need assistance in that regard, you can get that. But again, what has happened, and then later on, we've got a case coming up directly behind this that talks about the zoning and of how we might want to amend the Unified Development Code to define congregate care and the procedures that we're going to talk about in that regard. We'll go through that. Essentially, though, the Linity Group, they've been talking to us over the last 2 or 3 months about coming to the city, and they elected to, because of the timing issue on this particular property, they wanted to come in and go ahead and start a plan development process and submit a concept plan and to define what this congregate care facility would look like. It is a 3-story structure. It would have 118 suites. They're for retirement living only. The applicant has submitted a written summary of the development and the anticipated demographic. For informational purposes, the applicant has also submitted to staff. We have a color sketch of the building with the draft floor plans of each floor. However, these details are not to be tied down at this stage, but rather during the future site plan. If so approved, we would have a future site plan review, and at that time we'll go into more detail about the actual site and property itself. And as I said, later on you're going to hear some more about what we were talking about with the UDC. We felt as though this particular property, it's a mid-block property. It's been there for several years. It backs up against the Rockwall Ford. There's a baseball field on one side of it, a park from the city, and then again an apartment complex to the southwest. It's across the street from a single-family district, the Waterstone district, and then we have just recently almost completed is the new apartment complex there, the Sonoma Court. We feel as though this particular mid-block property, even though it's zoned general retail, because it is in a mid-block situation on this particular roadway, that the actual possibility of somebody developing this for retail use is pretty limited. Folks are not going to be isolated at that to really have a successful business there. They wouldn't do that. We feel as though this is probably a very good transitional use for this property in the sense that it's a type of residential use that is transitioning from a higher intense commercial use, which similar to the which is the Rockwall Ford dealership, And then you've got some similar surrounding properties with a similar situation of the apartments on one side, and then you've got a less intense residential use across the street with the Waterstone folks. The Lenity Group will also tell you that they did meet. They held a meeting with people within 200 feet of the site. They sent out a notice. We gave them our notification area, and they sent it out on their own, and they scheduled a meeting, which they held. They didn't have much attendance at that meeting. However, the president of the HOA of Waterstone was there at the meeting and did attend the meeting. Mr. Harold Snyder was at that meeting, and they can relay the information that they communicated with him about the development. One of the things that we were, as we've developed our part of the ordinance, which we'll talk about, is that we wanted to make sure that this was of a high quality development that would occur here. So they have taken our recommendations that we were going to submit to you in the next case, as far as the requirements for what we want to see as a congregate care facility in the city of Rockwall, and those are listed in the case in their particular PD standards. Those includes an age restriction. We asked them to make it 62 years minimum age. There are several things in there about amenities, including areas for activities, open areas, the limitation on the kitchen facilities. This is a fully, they provide all services within this building. The rooms themselves would have basically a refrigerator and probably a microwave, but there would be no kitchen facilities within the units. They provide 3 meals a day. They provide transportation. Most of the residents within this facility, majority of them do not want to drive, so they own their own bus, and they have that facility transportation for them. Again, their concept is that they would like to provide enough activity on site. They think the seniors are very active that would live in this facility. One of the things that they have done, which was a concern of ours too to begin with, is that you have to put detention on this site, and that they've decided to go underground with the detention all the way around the site. And that area of trees, I don't know if there we go. We were able to look at that area that's on the corner there as a buffer, and they're going to be able to hopefully keep a lot of those trees that are sitting there right now, keep them within the site and not have to take them out because of the detention requirements. Again, getting back to the parking situation, most of these folks don't drive, so their parking ratio is really reduced. It's like 0.75 per unit for parking. So the need for parking is not nearly substantial, and the number of trips would be, if they take basically a congregate trip in a bus, you're not going to see that many cars coming in and out of the place. The other factor too was the actual drive access. I think Ms. Jackson had mentioned that initially they had asked about maybe doing a shared drive access with the park, but that really was something that we could not really accommodate necessarily for them in a long-term situation. The park itself is something that the long-term use of that park may change in the future. So after some engineering, we looked at a midpoint on the median. They can create an actual driveway coming off of Yellow Jacket and put a turn lane in, and it meets our requirements. And you can see that on this particular sketch here, and that will be able to be put in. Also with this facility, there are other, we would recommend to them from the site plan standpoint that they provide some additional buffering for themselves. And that would mean some additional landscaping, fencing, essentially to try to buffer the stuff within themselves, so that it provides a little better environment for the residents within there. And they've agreed to that. You can tell that from this particular landscaping plan. Again, this is a public hearing. We did notify people within 200 property owners within 200 feet. And again, like is mentioned in the staff report, the Lenity Group did hold a meeting with those folks, or invited those folks to a meeting from the Waterstone Estates, and the HOA president did show. With that, the Planning and Zoning Commission did hear this case on the June 14th, and recommended approval by a vote of 4-0. The two conditions that staff had put in were that they, basically the subject property described in the legal description is Exhibit A in the PD concept plan, Exhibit B be subject to the PD development standards as described in Exhibit C, which are the ones we were talking about earlier within that, as you read those. And then the future development, each track of this would require any kind of approval of a site plan, a PD site plan, in addition to any engineering and preliminary plating and final plating procedures that we would have for this property. With that, I'll turn it over to the applicant, and Mr. Mayor, this is public hearing.
Thank you, Robert. First of all, do we have any questions of staff? At this point, I'm going to open a public hearing. If the applicant would please come forward. Then please go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Mayor Sweet, council members, staff, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Lowen. I'm with Lenity Group. Address is 471 High Street, Southeast, number 10, Salem, Oregon, 97304. A little ways from home tonight. I'm glad to be back here though. And if I can get where I want to be here and show you my PowerPoint. For those of you who were here, the meeting, I believe it was first Monday in May, I had an opportunity to chat with you in regards to, there we go. New show. All right. When I spoke with you about 6-8 weeks ago, we were talking generically about congregate care. And I mentioned to you that, that our developer, which is Hawthorne Development, that has been involved with congregate care development over the last 25, almost 30 years, was very interested in Rockwall, excuse me. We're back. We are very interested in Rockwall, and that is why I stand before you this evening. What I'd like to discuss for a few minutes is the demographics and what the services are involved in a facility like the one that Mr. LaCroix has done such an excellent job of describing this evening. Give you an idea, our average age, seniors are in their late 70s, early 80s. They're in good health, and they do not require medical assistance. They do not require that factor in regards to life assistance, bathing, medical assistance, that sort of thing. That is a different component within the whole spectrum of senior housing. Typically, they live within 10 miles of the site, or they're moving from 10 miles of the site, or have family that are within 10 miles of the site. People aren't moving from outside the area to come to the facilities. These are people who've been in Rockwall for a long time. Typically singles. We do have about 20% that are couples, and it's reflective that we actually do have some 2-bedroom units. About 10% of our facility is 2-bedroom units. A majority of them do not drive. We find that about 25% of them will move in and bring a car, and that car goes away after the next 6 to 12 months. Reflectively, I've had a chance to visit several of our facilities that are 100% full over the last couple of months. I show up when most of the residents should be there, lunchtime, breakfast time, and I still count 15, 20 empty parking spaces when everybody's there for meal time. Why they're there is they are seeking this lifestyle by choice, not by need. It's not moving into an assisted living facility because they can't take care of themselves at home anymore or don't want the cost of bringing somebody in, but they're moving to this sort of lifestyle because it makes life easier for them. In fact, last time, and I see some familiar faces from last time, I call it Friday night services. When I get home from work on Friday night, I don't want to cook, I don't want to clean, I don't want to do yard work, and I don't want to do laundry, neither does my wife. When you move in these facilities, you get Friday night services 7 days a week. Plus, you don't have to drive. There's a shuttle that takes you wherever you need to go. And the other thing, as I'm kind of trying to track with my PowerPoint, is there's a commonality because these are people from their era, their contemporaries. They have common interests. So a lot of times they're moving in because they have a friend that lives there. Or they have people their own age that have similar experiences. What is provided within our facility and in your code, which they mirror very well. First of all, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. You don't have to cook. And that touches on the fact that what we don't have, what we call an apartment unit or a housing unit, we call it a suite because it does not include a kitchen. It provides what we call a 1/2 or 3/4 refrigerator and a sink. Some people may call that a wet bar. Microwaves are not included, although some people will bring a microwave in for popcorn, that sort of stuff. But there is no meals prepared in the suites because part of their monthly rent is 3 meals a day. So they don't have to cook. Housekeeping and linen service, I already touched on that. Social and physical activities and volunteer opportunities. These are not a bunch of people who want to sit over in a rocking chair. These are active. They're out shopping, they're volunteering in churches, they're volunteering in schools. They don't want to be over on the edge of town, which is one of the reasons we like this facility, because it's close to different activities, different opportunities for them. They're out and about. The shuttle bus will take them to their doctor's appointments. It will take them to church, to volunteer opportunities, plus they do field trips. Obviously, field trips vary from facility to facility, and keep in mind that Hawthorne's been involved in over 300, almost 350 of these throughout North America, but different activities. They will take them to the opera, they will take them to the local festivals, to the state fair, whatever the different opportunities are, there's always activities going. And one thing I was remiss in bringing, I should have brought you a copy of one of the monthly activity calendars from the facility. I can't keep up with it. It's amazing how many opportunities that they have. We talked about the van service. Within our facility, and this is the latest revision to our actual floor plans, we've got the chapel, the beauty salon, exercise room, game room, library, bistro, which is a new option for us. We've expanded our movie theater. We've got private rooms for family gatherings, other gathering areas throughout the building. The building is designed what we call a central core, which is an atrium area that goes up 3 stories, has windows up at the top, and then off of that are the various arms of the building, or wings of the building. Within that central core is also where the central dining room is, where they have all their meals. Building design is residential in nature, and we'll show you a few pictures here in just a couple minutes. All the suites have patios or balconies. All of them have outside access. First floor, obviously, patio. Second, third floor, they have balconies. So everybody has an outside view, has access. Within the facility, about 30% of the interior space is the activity areas we talked about in that central floor. We have studio suites, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom suites, and I'll show you some diagrams of that in just a minute. And as I mentioned earlier, there are not kitchens in the suites. Here's the site plan you guys have already taken a look at. We'll add a little color to it here to give you an idea of what it's going to be looking like. There is a pool involved, and there's a cabana area in the back. There's some raised, so one of the things that become very popular is we actually have raised garden beds where they can do some gardening, they can do some vegetables, they can do flowers. There's all kinds of opportunities there. One of the things that is extremely popular, and this is whether it's a facility in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, or in Rockwall, Texas, is our walking trails. We have walking paths that circulate throughout the facility, and walking is very popular. And we have it designed so they don't have to go off-site to do that. They can stay within the facility and stay on-site and still get their exercise in.